We all thought the sons walked away. What if they were pushed out? For years, the official story of the Roloff farm succession has been one of heartbreak and failed negotiations. We were told the offers from Zach and Jeremy Roloff, the twin boys who grew up on that very land, simply weren't good enough. That Matt Roloff, the patriarch, was left with no choice but to put a piece of his legacy on the open market. But what if that entire narrative was a carefully constructed lie? Newly recovered text messages, part of a shocking new court filing, threatened to expose a calculated, decade-long game of chess to seize control of the Roloff legacy from within. The story you think you know is about to be shattered. This isn't just about a farm deal gone wrong. According to these explosive allegations, this is a story of systematic sabotage, manipulation, and a master plan to steal a family's birthright. If you believe there's more to this story than meets the eye, and if you want to be the first to hear the details that the mainstream outlets are too afraid to touch, then you need to do 3 things right now. Hit that like button to show you stand for the truth. Click subscribe so you don't miss a single update in this developing story. And ring that notification bell. Because the information we're about to reveal is a bombshell that will change how you see little people, big world forever. You are now tuned into LPBW Update, and we are going deeper than anyone else. Let's begin by revisiting the landscape of the Roloff family as we, the public, have understood it for the past several years. The central beating heart of the drama has always been the 100 acres of Oregon soil known as Roloff Farms. It was more than a business, it was a character in the show, a playground for the children, the backdrop of a marriage, and the physical embodiment of the Roloff family legacy. The ultimate question looming over the series for more than a decade was always, who will take over the farm? The natural assumption, the one nurtured by countless episodes and family discussions, was that it would be one of the sons, specifically Jeremy or Zach. They were the ones who had toiled in the pumpkin patch, who had learned to drive tractors on its dirt roads, and who had expressed time and time again a deep emotional desire to raise their own children in the same magical environment. Then came the schism. The dream crumbled. One by one, the possibilities were extinguished. Jeremy Roloff, the creative and ambitious son, made his bid. The negotiations, shrouded in secrecy, fell apart. The public was fed a simple, digestible narrative. Jeremy's offer wasn't right. It wasn't what Matt was looking for. There was disappointment, a tangible sense of loss, and Jeremy and his wife Audrey eventually bought their own farm nearby, a move that seemed to signal a painful acceptance of defeat. The torch would not be passed to them. Next came Zach Roloff, the son who had never strayed far from home, who worked on the farm, who brought his own children to play in the same spots he once did. His negotiation was even more public and far more acrimonious. It ended in a fiery explosion of familial resentment that played out on social media and on the show. Matt Roloff publicly declared Zach's offer was also not good enough, framing both his sons as feeling entitled and not understanding the business realities of the situation. Zach, in a rare public outburst, accused his father of manipulating the narrative, of changing the terms, and of not being the man he once was. The family fractured. Zach and his wife Tori moved an hour away to Washington, creating a physical and emotional distance that felt devastatingly permanent. The official story, cemented by Matt and his partner Caryn Chandler, was that Matt was a heartbroken father who tried his best to keep the farm in the family, but his sons just couldn't meet him at a realistic price point. He was, in his own telling, a victim of his own success, having built a property so valuable that his own children couldn't afford it. Caryn was portrayed as his supportive partner, a comforting presence trying to help Matt navigate the emotional fallout of his children's failed bids. She was the steady hand, the voice of reason, the one who picked up the pieces after the boys, as the story went, walked away. This narrative, while sad, was largely accepted. Viewers lamented the end of an era, but understood the complexities of business and family. It was a modern tragedy of inheritance, a cautionary tale. But a new, explosive court filing from October of 2025, submitted to the Superior Court of Washington County, Oregon, alleges that this accepted history is not just a misunderstanding. It alleges that it is a deliberate, fraudulent fabrication. The filing, a civil lawsuit brought forth by both Jeremy Roloff and Zachary Roloff against Caryn Chandler, and potentially as a co-defendant, Matt Roloff, is for tortious interference in an expected inheritance. And it claims that the sons didn't just walk away. They were systematically and deliberately pushed out by a master plan orchestrated by one person, Caryn Chandler. This is the foundational lie the lawsuit seeks to expose, the idea that the offers were not good enough. According to sources who have seen the preliminary evidence laid out in the filing, the truth is far more sinister. The sons' offers were not only legitimate, but in one case, had been verbally accepted in principle. The lawsuit alleges that these valid, heartfelt offers were intentionally sabotaged, misrepresented, and dismantled behind the scenes by Caryn, who, the filing claims, had been methodically positioning herself to acquire control of the farm for her own family and her own financial interests since the day she transitioned from a farm employee to Matt Roloff's partner. To understand the sheer gravity of these allegations, we have to rewind the clock, not just to the failed negotiations, but back a decade, to when Caryn Chandler was still the manager of pumpkin season. She was an employee, an efficient one, who earned Matt's trust and respect through her work ethic. She became indispensable to the farm's most profitable venture. But the lawsuit alleges that her ambition didn't stop at being a good manager. It suggests that as Matt and Amy's marriage began to publicly crumble, Caryn saw not a tragedy, but an opportunity, a power vacuum. She provided Matt with a sympathetic ear, a shoulder to lean on, and an intimate knowledge of the business that Amy, who was growing increasingly distant from the farm's operations, no longer possessed. According to reports from a former farm employee who has remained close to the family, Caryn's influence began subtly. She would offer opinions on business decisions, gently questioning the sons' readiness to take on responsibility. She would allegedly frame their youthful mistakes not as learning experiences, but as evidence of their incompetence. She was a master at planting seeds of doubt, the source claims. She'd say things to Matt like, "Are you sure Jeremy has the focus for this?" Or, "Zach's heart is in the right place, but does he have the business mind?" It was never a direct attack, always couched in concern for Matt and the farm's future. But the cumulative effect was to slowly erode Matt's confidence in his own sons. This alleged campaign of quiet psychological warfare escalated as the sons grew older and began making serious inquiries about their future on the farm. The lawsuit details a pattern of interference. When Jeremy would present a new idea for diversifying the farm's income, Caryn would allegedly be the one to find the fatal flaw, to point out the risk, to counsel Matt towards a more conservative approach, which often meant maintaining the status quo and, by extension, her own sphere of influence. When Zach would spend hours working on the farm, proving his dedication through sweat equity, Caryn would allegedly remark to Matt on how tired he seemed, planting the idea that perhaps Zach didn't have the physical stamina for the monumental task of running the entire operation. The core of the son's legal argument is that Caryn engaged in fraudulent interference. This wasn't just a stepmom not getting along with her stepkids. This was, as the filing alleges, a deliberate strategy to isolate Matt from his sons and to position herself as the only person he could trust with his life's work. She became the gatekeeper of information. The sons would tell their father one thing, and by the time it was processed and repeated by Caryn, it would be subtly twisted. According to the filings' preliminary statements, Jeremy's detailed multi-phase business plan for the farm, which included proposals for ecotourism and an expanded events venue, was presented to Matt by Caryn as a risky and unfunded dream that would bankrupt him. Zach's more modest proposal to buy a portion of the property with a right of first refusal on the rest was allegedly framed as an insulting lowball offer that didn't respect the value of what Matt had built. The lawsuit claims she created a feedback loop of negativity. She would tell Matt the boys were being disrespectful or demanding, and then, because of the tension she had created, the boys would naturally become frustrated, which would then be presented back to Matt as proof of their difficult attitudes. He was, according to this theory, a frog in boiling water, slowly conditioned to believe that his sons, who desperately wanted to carry on his legacy, were actually the biggest threats to it. He was led to believe the very people who should have been his natural successors were unqualified, ungrateful, and unreasonable. And the person leading him to this conclusion was the one who stood to gain the most from their removal. Now, we introduce the overlooked protagonist in this entire saga, the quiet force who may be responsible for bringing this all to light, Tori Roloff. Publicly, Tori has always maintained a graceful and dignified silence on the specifics of the family conflict. She has focused on her children and supported her husband, Zach, without engaging in the public mudslinging. But according to sources close to the couple, this quiet demeanor concealed a vigilant and methodical mind. Tori saw the inconsistencies. She heard the stories that changed with each telling. She witnessed firsthand the subtle manipulation and the emotional toll it was taking on her husband. She didn't trust the narrative they were being fed, and for years she has been privately documenting everything. It started with a journal. According to a source familiar with the family's legal preparations, Tori began writing down every conversation, every promise made, and every promise broken. She noted the dates, the times, the exact phrasing Matt or Caryn would use. She saw how a definite maybe would turn into a hard no overnight with no logical explanation. She saw how terms of a potential deal would shift mysteriously after Caryn had a private conversation with Matt. She knew something was wrong, that there was a missing piece to the puzzle that explained the disconnect between the loving father-in-law she knew and the ruthless businessman his sons were being forced to negotiate with. Her suspicions solidified around a key piece of family technology, an old family iPad that had been shared and used by everyone, including Matt and Caryn, during the critical years of the farm negotiations. The device had been forgotten, cast aside in a drawer when everyone upgraded. But Tori remembered it. She had a hunch that this digital graveyard might hold the ghosts of conversations past. The problem was, much of it had been deleted. Messages, emails, notes, wiped clean. But wiping a device is not the same as erasing the data forever. This is where Tori made a critical move. Instead of giving up, she hired a forensic technology expert, a specialist in data recovery. It was a significant financial investment and a huge risk, a move she allegedly made without the full knowledge of the rest of the family at the time. She gave the expert the old iPad and simply asked him to recover anything he could from the period between 2018 and 2022. She didn't know what she would find, or if she would find anything at all. For weeks, she waited. The result, according to the court filings index of evidence, was a digital bombshell. The expert was able to recover fragments of deleted text messages, cached data from email applications, and location data points that painted a disturbing picture. It was a trove of information that provided context, exposed contradictions, and most importantly, contained the core smoking gun document that forms the centerpiece of the Sun's lawsuit. Before we get to that smoking gun, let's look at the other pieces of the puzzle Tori's investigation allegedly uncovered. The recovered data reportedly includes early drafts of emails from Matt to his sons, written in a warm, conciliatory tone discussing the sale of the farm as a joyful transition of legacy. These drafts were then contrasted with the final versions that were actually sent, versions that were colder, more corporate, and included new, harsher terms and conditions. The timestamps on these edits allegedly showed that the changes were often made late at night from the IP address of the Arizona home Matt and Caryn shared, and often shortly after a flurry of text messages between Matt and Caryn's phones. The data also recovered deleted notes. One note, allegedly written on Matt's account, was a list of pros and cons for selling to Jeremy. The pros list was long, filled with emotional points about family legacy, grandchildren growing up on the farm, and keeping the Roloff name alive. The cons list was short, with just 2 points: financing is tight and C's concerns. The lawsuit will argue that C's concerns became the lever used to pry the entire deal apart. But the most damning piece of evidence, the one that ties the entire alleged conspiracy together, is a series of recovered text messages, not from Matt, but between Caryn Chandler and a commercial real estate developer based in Scottsdale, Arizona, a man she had reportedly known for years through friends. These messages were sent months before the north side of the farm was even officially listed for sale, while Matt was still supposedly in good faith negotiations with his son, Zach. This text chain is the linchpin of the lawsuit. It is the evidence that, according to the filing, elevates this from a messy family dispute to a calculated case of fraud. The messages allegedly show Caryn and the developer discussing the Roloff farm not as a family home, but as a distressed asset. The language they use is cold, clinical, and predatory. The developer asked Caryn about the status of the family buyout, and Caryn's alleged replies are what could blow this case wide open. According to a source who has read the transcripts included in the court filing, one text from Caryn reads, "The kids are still in the picture, making their emotional offers. We have to let that play out. Matt's still sentimental, but they don't have the liquidity to make it make sense. It's going to fall apart. It's just a matter of when." The developer allegedly responds, "Let me know when the dust settles. My investors are always looking for unique properties with a built-in brand like that. We could do something big there." And then comes the message that the son's lawyers will likely present as irrefutable proof of intent. Caryn allegedly wrote back, "The plan is to wait out the kids' emotional offers. Once they're officially out, Matt will be heartbroken and feel like he has no other options. He'll be looking for an easy out. Your holding company could come in and secure the property for a fraction of its real value. We just have to be patient and let him arrive at the conclusion that selling to a third party is his only choice." Let that sink in. The plan is to wait out the kids' emotional offers. Secure the property for a fraction of its real value. Let him arrive at the conclusion. This isn't the language of a supportive partner helping her significant other navigate a difficult family situation. If these texts are authentic, this is the language of a corporate takeover. It's a calculated strategy to manipulate a man's emotions, his heartbreak over his own children, to create a financially advantageous situation for herself and her associates. The filing alleges that Caryn's goal was never to help the sons buy the farm. Her goal was to ensure they failed, creating a vacuum that her preferred buyer could fill at a discounted price. The lawsuit reportedly speculates on the endgame. Why would Caryn do this? The motive, as presented in the filing, is twofold: control and profit. By orchestrating a sale to a friendly third-party developer with whom she had a pre-existing relationship, she would not only potentially receive a finder's fee or a kickback, but she could also negotiate a role for herself in the new development. Perhaps she envisioned a Roloff Farms that was no longer a family pumpkin patch, but a high-end events venue or a series of luxury rental properties managed by her. She would have shed the baggage of the Roloff children, transforming their legacy into her own personal cash cow, all while maintaining her relationship with a grateful Matt, who would believe she had simply found a brilliant solution after his own sons had let him down. It is, if true, a breathtakingly ruthless and diabolical plan. The evidence doesn't stop with the text messages. As news of the lawsuit began to circulate quietly among former employees and associates, a key witness emerged, adding another devastating layer to the Sun's case. This witness is the farm's longtime financial manager and accountant, a man who had worked with Matt for nearly 20 years. He was unceremoniously let go by Caryn in 2023, who cited a desire to modernize the books and bring in her own team. The manager, who had remained silent out of professional loyalty, felt that loyalty was no longer warranted. He came forward to the Sun's legal team and provided a sworn affidavit that corroborates a crucial part of their story. The affidavit concerns the negotiations with Jeremy Roloff. The public was told Jeremy's offer fell apart for financial reasons. However, the former manager swears under oath that this is patently false. He states that he personally reviewed Jeremy's comprehensive business and financial plan and found it to be innovative, sound, and eminently viable. In his sworn statement, he claims that Matt Roloff was in fact thrilled with the proposal. He says that in a meeting in the spring of 2020, Matt shook Jeremy's hand and said, "Let's do it. Let's make this happen." According to the manager, they had a deal in principle. The lawyers just needed to draw up the paperwork. But then the betrayal. The manager's statement alleges that 2 days after this handshake agreement, he was called into a meeting with Matt and Caryn. In that meeting, Caryn took the lead. She claimed that she had taken a deeper look at Jeremy's financials and, in consultation with the manager, had found major errors and unrealistic projections that made the entire plan a catastrophic risk. The manager, in his affidavit, swears he was completely blindsided. He had never had that conversation with Caryn. He had never found any major errors. He tried to speak up in the meeting to correct the record, but Caryn allegedly cut him off, saying they needed to present a united front to protect Matt. Matt, looking stressed and confused, deferred to Caryn's judgment. He trusted her. He believed she and his trusted manager had found something he had missed. The manager states that Caryn told Matt, "He's a good kid, honey, but the numbers don't lie. He'll run this place into the ground in 5 years." After the meeting, the manager confronted Caryn, asking her why she had lied. Her alleged response, according to the affidavit, was cold and dismissive. "Matt is too emotional about this. He needs to be protected from the boy's bad ideas. It's for his own good." The deal with Jeremy was killed that week. The official reason given was that they couldn't make the numbers work. The financial manager's testimony directly refutes this. It suggests the numbers did work, but they were deliberately misrepresented by Caryn to sabotage a done deal. This is the unexpected internal betrayal. The witness from inside the castle walls who can testify that the queen was poisoning the king's mind against his own heirs. This affidavit, combined with the recovered text messages, transforms the Sun's lawsuit from a case of he said, she said, into a mountain of evidence pointing to a coordinated multi-year campaign of deception. It paints a picture of Caryn Chandler not as a loving partner, but as a predator who slowly and methodically dismantled a family for her own financial gain. The scope of the allegations is stunning. It reframes every interaction we have seen on the show for the past decade. Every word of support from Matt, every expression of sympathy is now cast in a sinister new light. Was it genuine concern, Or was it a move on a chessboard? Was she comforting a heartbroken father, or was she admiring her own handiwork? The legal threat is now escalating beyond just a family squabble over money. The initial civil lawsuit for tortious interference in an inheritance is serious enough, carrying the potential for millions of dollars in damages. If Zach and Jeremy can prove that they would have inherited or purchased the farm, if not for Caryn's malicious interference, she could be on the hook for the entire perceived value of their lost opportunity. But the evidence of her coordinating with an outside real estate developer to deliberately devalue a family asset for a future sale introduces a far more dangerous element: criminality. Legal experts who have been briefed on the allegations suggest that these text messages could be a predicate for a criminal investigation into conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. It is illegal to conspire with a party to manipulate the conditions of a sale in order to acquire a property under false pretenses or at a fraudulently low value. The fact that the alleged plan involved playing on the seller's emotional state to make him feel he had no other options could be seen by a prosecutor as a clear indicator of criminal intent. This means that Caryn Chandler isn't just facing a lawsuit from the stepsons she allegedly alienated. She could be facing scrutiny from the Oregon District Attorney's Office. And because Matt Roloff was the owner of the property and the ultimate decision maker, he too is now in a perilous position. He is no longer just a potential witness. He is a potential participant. The great unanswered question that investigators will have to unravel is this: was Matt Roloff a purely innocent victim, a heartbroken father who was expertly manipulated by the woman he loved and trusted? Or was he, at some level, a willing participant in the scheme? Did he know about Caryn's plan? Did he approve of it, perhaps seeing it as a way to get the maximum value for his property while being able to publicly blame his sons for the deal falling through? This is the question that hangs over everything. The lawsuit, for now, primarily targets Caryn, but legal insiders suggest this is a common strategy. By focusing on the party against whom the evidence is strongest, they put immense pressure on her, which could potentially lead to a settlement or, more dramatically, lead to her implicating Matt in exchange for leniency. The entire Roloff dynasty, the wholesome family image that was curated for television for over 2 decades, is now teetering on the brink of complete and utter collapse. Threatened not by divorce or family arguments, but by a legal firestorm of alleged fraud, conspiracy, and the deepest betrayal imaginable. The fight for Roloff Farms is no longer about a deed or a title. It's about uncovering the truth of what really happened in those closed-door negotiations and who was really pulling the strings in the tragic downfall of a family's dream. The information is still coming in, and we will be here to cover every single development. Let's process the sheer scale of what this lawsuit alleges. The narrative we've just laid out, supported by the son's court filing, suggests a level of premeditated deception that is difficult to comprehend in the context of a family. It repositions Caryn Chandler from a controversial partner to a Machiavellian strategist. To fully grasp how such a plan could have been executed, we must delve into the psychological landscape of the key player she needed to control, Matt Roloff. Matt is a complex man. He is a creator, an innovator, a man who literally built his own world from the ground up. But with that creative genius comes a well-documented ego and a deep-seated need for control and validation. The lawsuit seems to argue that Caryn didn't just fall in love with Matt. She studied him. She understood his vulnerabilities better than anyone, perhaps even better than he understood them himself. Her alleged masterstroke was leveraging his greatest strength, his identity as a brilliant businessman, and turning it into his greatest weakness. After his divorce from Amy, Matt was emotionally adrift. He had lost his partner of nearly 30 years, and the family structure he had built was crumbling. Caryn, the lawsuit suggests, stepped into this void not just as a romantic partner, but as his new business confidant. She praised his acumen, she deferred to his vision, and she made him feel like the undisputed king of his castle once again. But at the same time, she allegedly began to subtly frame his sons not as his successors, but as his rivals. Think about the dynamic. Jeremy, with his own creative vision and entrepreneurial spirit, could have been perceived by a vulnerable Matt not as someone to carry the torch, but as someone who wanted to change the masterpiece he had created. Caryn could have easily fanned these flames of insecurity. A statement from Jeremy like, "I'd love to modernize the wedding venue," could be twisted in a private conversation with Matt into, "See, he thinks what you built isn't good enough. He wants to tear it down and put his own stamp on it." For a man whose identity is so intrinsically linked to his creation, this would be a deeply painful and threatening thought. Similarly, with Zach, who represented the heart and soul of the farm's legacy, Caryn's alleged strategy was to attack his perceived competence. Zach's approach was always more about the work, the day-to-day running of the pumpkin patch, the physical labor. The lawsuit posits that Caryn framed this strength as a weakness in the boardroom. She would allegedly highlight every minor mistake, every missed deadline, as evidence that while Zach had the heart, he lacked the killer instinct needed to run a modern multi-million-dollar enterprise. She would tell Matt, "You need a business person, not just a farmhand. You need someone who thinks like you," and who was always there, thinking like him, agreeing with him, and reinforcing his identity as a business titan. It was Caryn. She positioned herself as the only person who truly understood the weight of his empire, while his own sons were just kids with sentimental dreams. And then there's the Amy factor. The divorce was bitter, especially concerning the division of the farm. Caryn allegedly used Matt's lingering resentment and mistrust towards Amy as a powerful weapon against the sons. The boys have always maintained a close relationship with their mother. The lawsuit suggests Caryn expertly framed this loyalty to their mother as a betrayal of their father. Any opinion Zach or Jeremy expressed that even remotely echoed a concern Amy had previously raised would be used as proof that they were being influenced by her, that they were on Team Amy. According to a report from a family insider, there was a specific incident during Zach's negotiation where he expressed concern about the proposed irrigation rights, a point Amy had fought for years to secure. Caryn allegedly later said to Matt, "That's not Zach talking, that's his mother's voice. She's using him to try and control you and the farm from a distance. Are you going to let her win through your son?" This tactic, if true, is insidious. It transformed a business negotiation into a loyalty test. By siding with their sons, Matt would feel like he was siding with his ex-wife and validating her criticisms of him. By rejecting his son's offers, he was reasserting his control and his independence from Amy's influence. Caryn, the theory goes, made it so that Matt couldn't accept his son's proposals without feeling like he was losing a battle in the ongoing war of his divorce. With this psychological manipulation as the backdrop, let's deconstruct the public excuses Matt gave for the deals falling through, viewing them through the lens of the lawsuit's allegations. The primary excuse was always that the offers were not good enough financially. The financial manager's sworn affidavit directly contradicts this, at least in Jeremy's case. It claims the plan was viable and had been accepted in principle. So where did the not good enough narrative come from? It came, allegedly, from Caryn's fabricated report of major errors in the financials. She created the problem that she then used to justify killing the deal. For Zach's offer, the details were always murkier, but Matt repeatedly emphasized that he was giving his sons a significant family discount, but they still couldn't make it work. The lawsuit, however, alleges that this discount was a moving target. The total valuation of the farm would mysteriously inflate, so even with a discount, the final price was always just out of reach. The recovered data from the iPad allegedly shows notes and spreadsheet drafts where the property valuation changes multiple times, often increasing by hundreds of thousands of dollars, with no corresponding market justification. The son's lawyers will argue this was not a genuine attempt to find a fair price, but a shell game designed to make a deal impossible while allowing Matt to claim he had offered them a bargain. It's the classic bait and switch, but applied to a family legacy. The second major excuse was entitlement. Matt lamented on social media that his sons wanted the farm handed to them. This allegation now appears to be a cruel inversion of the truth. Jeremy presented a full-fledged business plan that required him to take on millions in debt and risk. Zach was working on the farm for years, contributing his labor. The lawsuit argues that this is the opposite of entitlement. It's commitment. But Caryn, the master of narrative, allegedly reframed their desire to continue the family legacy as a demand for a handout. She twisted their love for the farm into greed, their ambition into arrogance. By constantly whispering this poison into Matt's ear, she made him see his hardworking sons as lazy princes demanding the keys to the kingdom without understanding their value. The collateral damage of this alleged scheme has been immense, extending far beyond the relationship between a father and his two sons. It has sent shockwaves through the entire Roloff clan. Think of the dynamic between Tori and Audrey Roloff. For a time, as their husbands were going through these parallel, painful negotiations, there was a perceived public distance between them. But this new legal filing suggests they are now firmly united. Tori, the quiet investigator, and Audrey, the wife who supported her husband's dream only to see it inexplicably die on the vine, have now allegedly been comparing notes for months. They are the matriarchs of the next generation, two mothers who watched their husbands get their hearts broken and their children's birthright get sold out from under them. Their shared experience of being gaslit and shut out has forged a powerful alliance. They are no longer just sisters-in-law. They are partners in a fight for their family's truth. And what of the other Roloff children, Molly and Jacob? Molly has always remained intensely private, but one can only imagine her pain watching her family publicly disintegrate over the very legacy that defined their childhood. But Jacob is a far more vocal and intriguing figure in this drama. For years, Jacob has been the family iconoclast, publicly criticizing the artificial nature of the reality show and distancing himself from the family business. Many viewers saw him as a rebellious outlier, but perhaps he was the only one who saw the rot setting in early on. His vague but pointed criticisms of the characters on the show may have been his way of signaling that what the public was seeing was a carefully constructed facade. The lawsuit may vindicate Jacob's long-held cynicism. He may not have known the specifics of Caryn's alleged plan, but his intuition told him that the family's values were being corrupted from within. He is now, according to sources, a staunch supporter of his brother's lawsuit. Then there is Amy Roloff. This lawsuit reframes her entire story arc. For years, she was often portrayed as bitter, obstructive, and unable to let go of the farm. Her palpable tension with Caryn was dismissed by many as simple jealousy. But what if it wasn't jealousy? What if it was intuition? What if Amy saw Caryn's ambition and manipulation for what it was, but she lacked the specific proof to convince anyone? Her desperate attempts to secure a firm buyout price, her arguments with Matt over dividing the property, her distrust of Caryn's increasing involvement in the business, all of it can now be reinterpreted as a mother's frantic, futile attempt to protect her children's inheritance from a threat no one else could see. She wasn't holding on to the past, she was fighting for her children's future. The lawsuit makes Amy look less like a bitter ex-wife and more like a Cassandra, a prophetess who was cursed to speak the truth but never be believed. Let's return to the Arizona connection, the text messages that formed the core of the evidence. The commercial real estate developer is not just some random contact. The filing reportedly identifies him as a man with a history of acquiring unique or distressed properties and redeveloping them into high-yield commercial ventures. His firm, which we will refer to based on insider chatter as Sonnenblick Holdings, specializes in exactly the kind of project that would be a nightmare for the Roloff family legacy, turning a family farm into a soulless corporate retreat, a branded vineyard with luxury tasting rooms, or even a housing development. The lawsuit alleges that the plan outlined in the text was for Sonnenblick Holdings, or a similar LLC created for the purpose, to purchase the farm at a price significantly below market value. How would they achieve this? By having Caryn convince Matt not to sell to his sons and then to do a quick and easy off-market sale to avoid the hassle of a public listing. Matt, emotionally exhausted and believing his sons had abandoned him, would be vulnerable to a clean offer that just made the problem go away. This offer would look good to him in his isolated state, but it would be a low ball price compared to the property's true development potential. And what was in it for Caryn? The most sinister allegation in the court filing is that Caryn's own children, particularly her son Connor, were to be involved in the new venture. The filing reportedly includes evidence of emails between Caryn and the developer where they discuss future management opportunities on the redeveloped property. One email allegedly mentions the need for a loyal on-site manager and floats the idea of a family dynasty of a different sort taking over, a Chandler dynasty, not a Roloff one. The goal, if these allegations are true, was not just to push the Roloff sons out, but to replace them with her own children, effectively performing a complete legacy transplant. She wouldn't just be the woman who got the farm, she'd be the matriarch who passed it on to her own bloodline. As this lawsuit moves forward, the process itself will be a spectacle of drama. We are entering the discovery phase. This is not a TV courtroom drama. It is a meticulous, often brutal process where lawyers from both sides will have the power to subpoena records. They will demand every text message, every email, every phone record from Matt and Caryn. They will depose witnesses for hours on end under oath. Caryn will have to sit in a room with Jeremy and Zach's lawyers and answer questions about those text messages. The financial manager will have to give his testimony under the threat of perjury. Matt Roloff himself will be deposed, forced to recount every conversation and justify every decision he made. This is the phase where lies fall apart. The pressure will be immense. We are already seeing the public relations battle begin. The leak of this court filing was the first shot across the bow, a clear move by the Suns camp to frame the narrative before Matt and Caryn can. We can expect a counteroffensive. Look for carefully curated interviews where a tearful Matt and a stoic Caryn portray themselves as the victims of a malicious and greedy lawsuit. They will likely release a statement saying something like, "We are heartbroken that after everything we tried to do to keep the farm in the family, Zach and Jeremy have chosen this path of public humiliation and false accusations. This is not about legacy, it's about money, and it's a tragedy." They will try to paint their sons as ungrateful and financially motivated, the very narrative Caryn has allegedly been crafting for years. The potential outcomes are all explosive. The best case scenario for Matt and Caryn is a quiet, out-of-court settlement for a massive sum of money, complete with an ironclad non-disclosure agreement that buries this story forever. But with the specter of a criminal investigation looming, that may not be enough. If the district attorney decides to press charges for conspiracy to commit fraud, this goes to a whole new level. A public criminal trial would not just be the end of Little People, Big World. It would be one of the most shocking celebrity legal battles in recent memory. And at the end of that road is the very real possibility of fines, restitution, and even jail time. This brings us back to the central, agonizing question at the heart of this entire tragedy. What did Matt know, and when did he know it? Was he an unwitting pawn or a willing co-conspirator? Let's examine both possibilities. The victim theory is compelling. Matt Roloff, post-divorce, was a man in a vulnerable state. He poured his life, his sweat, and his very body into building that farm. His physical health was declining, and the weight of his legacy was immense. Caryn Chandler, a charismatic and intelligent woman, allegedly offered him unconditional support and validation at a time when he felt the world was against him. It is entirely plausible that she expertly played on his insecurities, his ego, and his complicated feelings towards his ex-wife and children. He may have genuinely believed her lies about the financial manager's findings. He may have genuinely believed the developer she introduced him to was just a savvy businessman offering a clean exit. In this version of events, Matt is a tragic figure, a King Lear who banished the children who loved him because he was poisoned by the whispers of a flatterer. He lost his family and his legacy not because he was malicious, but because he was blind, manipulated by a master of the game. But then there is the accomplice theory. This theory posits that Matt Roloff is no one's fool. He is a shrewd, often ruthless businessman who has always been obsessed with the bottom line and his own public image. Perhaps he was frustrated with his son's sentimentality. Perhaps he didn't believe they had the Midas touch that he possessed. Maybe, just maybe, the idea of selling to a corporate entity for a massive payday, which he could then use to fund his own retirement and future projects, was more appealing than selling to his sons at a discount. In this darker scenario, Caryn wasn't the manipulator. She was the enabler. She gave him the strategy and the moral cover he needed to do what he wanted to do all along: cash out. He could get his money, move to Arizona, and Caryn would take the public relations heat as the wicked stepmother. He gets to play the part of the heartbroken father who had no choice, while privately knowing he orchestrated the entire outcome. The text messages from Caryn might not have been her plan that she was hiding from Matt, but her plan that she was coordinating with Matt. She was his lieutenant, executing the ruthless strategy that he, the general, had approved. The truth is likely somewhere in the murky middle. But the evidence presented in this lawsuit, the recovered text messages, the sworn affidavit from a trusted employee, the pattern of alleged sabotage, demands that we reevaluate everything we thought we knew about this family. The fairy tale is over. The idyllic pumpkin patch has become a crime scene. And a family's legacy is now Exhibit A in a legal battle that could destroy them all. The question is no longer just who will get the farm. The question is who was telling the truth and who was lying all along. After seeing this evidence, the detailed allegations, the text messages, and the testimony from the inside, a crucial question remains for all of us who have followed this family for years. Do you think Matt was a victim in Caryn's plan, completely manipulated and blinded by his trust in her? Or was he a willing participant, using her as a shield to execute his own desired outcome? This is the debate that will define the next chapter of the Roloff saga. Go to the poll in our community tab right now and cast your vote. And then come back here to the comments and explain your choice. Let's discuss, let's debate, because the full story is finally starting to come out and your voice is part of it.